Friends, welcome back to this 2 days international conference on digitalization, new media, and video game culture, which is organized by Department of Economics, Maulana Azad National Urdu University, in collaborations of ad hoc group 01 Digital Sociology, IEEE, FLAIR, and International Sociological Associations. Now we will have our special technical sessions. We do have with us Professor Afroz Alam, who is head of the Department of Political Science, Maulana Azad National Urdu University. Many of you must have read his regular column in Indian Express, Times of India, and many other blogs. He keeps writing on political scenario of the country. He is a fine academic scholar and researcher engaged into various issues of the country and politically. And one of the recent mention I just shared initially with you, that the projections of Telangana was one of his very important recent survey, very scientific survey, which found to be true for Telangana elections and other states of the country. We are thankful for his accepting this very technical sessions on video game culture, trends, and digital governance. Thank you, Afroz Sah, for accepting our invitations. We will have 6 presentations in this technical session, and at the end of the paper presentations, it will be good that we will have question hours so that the rhythm doesn't go away, because you are also live and recorded, so it will help the audience, other audience, to see the question hours more effectively. I'll be calling one by the other as per the schedule you have seen. Possibly we'll have 10 minutes, but it's up to the chair. 1:30 we will wind up for lunch. So that will be the discretion of the chair of the session. But I'm here just to help you all in terms of moderating and running the show. So thank you all for having agreed to present your paper. And now over to Professor Afroz Alam. How do we go? We start?
All the presenters should give us a broader outline, because ultimately we are going to read your detailed piece in the forthcoming volume. So what about the new arguments or methods of findings you are going to offer? Please offer that so that we can have a focused discussion at the end of it. If we will involve ourselves into the nitty-gritty of the discussions, then the time will be consumed and nothing else will happen. So the point is that be focused and give us that what is the new argument. If there is no new argument, what is the new methodology you have used, or something interesting, if there is any finding, and if new arguments you're proposing. So that is what is needed. The discussion part should be avoided at the moment, because we will be ultimately reading it in your detailed article. So this is what I wanted to say that.
Okay, thank you, Professor Afroz. So I would invite now first Ms. Nikita Thevanur. She comes from O.P. Jindal Global University, and her paper is on accuracy, assassins, and anachronism, an exploratory study of Assassin's Creed 4 for the pedagogical use of video games. Nikita, please come.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm Nikita, and I'll be presenting my paper on Assassin's Creed and the use of it in historical learning. To start with, my research questions for the entire paper were how video games approach history, and how specifically Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag approaches history, as well as what historians can learn from Assassin's Creed 4 about how to make a historical game. So my proposal essentially is using video games as a mode of teaching history instead of just for entertainment. So Why I chose Assassin's Creed Black Flag is because Assassin's Creed is one of the biggest franchises in the world and definitely the biggest historical game franchise in the world. The game has sold over 200 million copies worldwide, and it explores various different periods of history through its different installations in the series. This particular game deals with the golden age of piracy, roughly from 1715 to 1722. And the methodology was primarily game analysis through case studies. So I picked 3 case studies from the video game to use because they have interesting mechanics, or they use history in a way that is useful for historians to look at when we talk about teaching history. And the game analysis is mostly informed by theories of historical game studies, which is a very well-established field at this point. And I'll be giving a brief overview of that as well, just so that we understand the main arguments that are kind of understood by me and the other scholars in the field. So historical game studies roughly started in 2005 with William Ricchio's sort of paper on computer games as history itself. Sorry. And his argument was that games are a platform where history can be represented in a way that is unique, primarily because he takes issue with the word representation itself. He argues that representations of narratives are generally singular, and this is an argument in popular history as a whole. But simulations mean they are almost 3-dimensional in how you can explore spaces and narratives. So the player then is placed in the game firmly and their choices matter. And that makes you understand the setting and the world itself far better than a singular narrative representation. Which leads into Adam Chapman and newer scholars' arguments about the form of history itself. So video games as a format, as we study them, so Assassin's Creed, for example, they are made for entertainment. Their goal is not education by any stretch of the imagination. They do have, a level of accuracy that is expected from them, but they are not beholden to it. So there are anachronisms and there are issues of accuracy throughout because they are kind of making it up as they go because they want to make it entertaining. So that means that when I look at this game, I'm looking at it from the perspective of what we can use from it further. I'm not criticizing the game's historicity, and I'm not arguing that the game is inaccurate and therefore useless. That is not the point of the presentation, so to speak. And moving on to the idea of accuracy and anachronism, 𝑰𝒏𝒕𝒆𝒏𝒂𝒕𝒊𝒐𝒏𝒂𝒍, whose text, What is History, which is kind of foundational in historiography, has talked about how historians, no matter how objective they try to be, will present a certain narrative one way or the other. And in a similar vein, Capel and Elliott, who are other scholars in game studies, talk about how video games have to be, historical video games in particular, have to be looked at that way as well. They are trying to maybe represent a more 3-dimensional image of the past, but it is still an image that is, I suppose, handled by people who are not fundamentally objective. So the 3 case studies I have, I'll go over each of them quickly just to talk about what they are. For those who aren't familiar with Assassin's Creed, it is a narrative-style role-playing game with several installations, and the plot is a bit too big to explain in any semblance of time, so I will avoid that. So the first is the Animus database. The Animus is a sort of feature that's in the plot itself, which I can't go into detail for right now. But essentially, it functions as an encyclopedia that you can access through the menu. And how it works is through exploration of the game, things get added into the database, and you get more information about it. So for example, if you are running through Nassau, for example, which is a part of the game, you can come across a historical landmark, and you'll just get a little notification that says you found it. If you go into the database, you can then learn more about the history of the place itself. So you can learn how it was built, when it was built, and why it is called that. So you learn about people, locations, landmarks, and even materials like sugar and rum, which is crucial for the time period. And so it forms a non-diegetic way for players to engage with the space because you don't have to give them all the information while they play the game itself. Sometimes when you play a game, you don't really want to be hit with loads and loads and loads of information. It won't stick. But this provides a way for players to both explore the world and then be able to get something out of that exploration as well in the form of a full database. So the second is about the adaptation of historical figures into a fictitious game. So Blackbeard is kind of the quintessential pirate. He is the one everyone knows about and the one everyone cares about. And so when you're adapting a figure like Blackbeard, who's almost larger than life in a lot of ways, how do you ensure that you maintain historical accuracy while making him relevant to the game's fictitious plot? And how Assassin's Creed manages that is by ensuring that certain events don't change. So Blackbeard dies the way he does. There is his raid of Charlestown, and we see him try to form the Pirate Republic in Nassau. So these events don't change. The player is just a little more involved. So you see that history play out, but you're not changing it. You're merely facilitating it in a different way. And so the game strikes a very interesting balance between having these major historical figures be relevant, but not making the player's choices not matter because you're trying to be entirely accurate to their lives as well. A different way they do historical figures, I'm so sorry about the slide. A different way that they look at historical figures in the game is through Mary Read and Adewale. I'll start with Mary Read because in a similar way to Blackbeard, she is also a historical figure, though much less is known about Mary Read. She was one of two well-known female pirates of the time, and in the game, she's actually very, very deeply tied to the plot of Assassin's Creed as a franchise. And so she has this interesting space of being a historical figure who is whose life is almost entirely tied to the Assassin Templar plot of the game. But they still manage to bring out interesting questions of gender, because when we first meet Mary Read, she's actually cross-dressing as a man. And so then the question becomes, well, why would she dress up as a man? And so you question the time period and you question the politics of the time through Mary Read and through your interactions with her. Because again, you as the player, you as Edward Kenway, who is the main character of the game, you are engaging with the space as he would. And so you are invested in these characters the same amount that he is. And so you care about Mary Read and you care about Blackbeard, and so you want to know more about their stories. Adewale, however, is not a real figure. He's an invention of the game, but he's based on a lot of historical ideas of what black piracy was like. He is, when we meet him, an escaped slave, and he becomes part of your crew, essentially, the player's crew. And throughout the game, we have interesting conversations with him about what it means to be a black man in this time period and an escaped slave on top of that. And additionally, the game released a DLC what it is like to be a freed slave in this time period. Lisa Gilbert did a study in 2019 with school children in America where she asked them what Assassin's Creed did for them in terms of learning history. And many of them pointed to this very game and this particular DLC as being the thing that really changed the way they look at slavery as a whole. Now, ideally, we would all think slavery is bad without a video game, but nonetheless, they were able to sort of the word they use is feel the history for themselves, because they were able to engage with it in a way that they'd never thought of before. Previously, slavery was almost statistics to them. They knew the number of slaves and they knew when it happened and how it ended, but they didn't necessarily know what that could have felt like. And while Adewale does not give them an actual feel of slavery, it humanizes the history in a way that was almost unexpected for them. So the main thing that I'm pitching with this paper is using video games as a medium in pedagogy as a whole. Because using empathy and telling these nuanced histories is a great way to get engagement from students. So history in general is not a very well-loved subject for a lot of reasons, primarily because reading a lot of books is not interesting anymore, unfortunately. But so if you give them a medium like this to at least get a taste of what history is like, you can make them interested in the space and in the time period on their own. After playing these games, I've read, not just for this paper, I promise, but I've read a lot of books about piracy and a lot of books about the history of the time period, entirely because the interest that I gained from this game was like unfathomable to me. I am not, however, asking for video games to be brought into schools, primarily because there's a lot of issues regarding accessibility and financial restraints, as well as learning new technologies altogether. Instead, museums emerge as a really interesting space for alternate learning and alternate education. So a museum-funded or a museum space could be used as a way to create exhibits that use these games and fund further games that can help students really engage with history in a manner that is productive and it furthers their education rather than stagnates it after high school. There are a lot of issues with this, primarily in the idea of representing the other, the danger of identity tourism, which has been talked about by game studies scholars to great degrees, and that there is also a limit of empathy. Empathy is not very useful if it ends there. You have to engage with the time period and engage with history as well. So while that is a sort of danger, I think that assisted engagement with these texts, because again, Lisa Gilbert's study shows that these students were willing to engage with history with their teachers in a different way after playing these games. And so it becomes clear that it would be useful for these games to be in an environment where there's more freedom than a classroom, but there's still someone there who they can further engage with the time period with. So a museum, again, emerges as a good alternative. Some limitations of the study itself were that the period of history that this game deals with doesn't have a lot of documentation that was easily available to me, and not a lot of documentation that's non-colonial. So when you read accounts about the pirates from that time period, they tend to be entirely negative, while the game is entirely, well, not entirely sympathetic, but largely sympathetic towards pirates. So a lot of the historical research was done based on secondary texts rather than primary. And the other limitation is that because I'm proposing a framework essentially for building a game, I have 3 features from Assassin's Creed 4, but that isn't really indicative of the larger genre of historical video games, and not even indicative of the newer Assassin's Creed games. But that does lead into opportunities for further research into video games as pedagogical tools and how we can use different kinds of games for different kinds of histories and different kinds of stories. Thank you. Hope I didn't go over time.
Thank you, Nikita, for timely presentation. Now I would request Arifa Samreen, who is a research scholar at Department of Sociology, 𝐵𝑚𝑖𝑎 Millia Islamia. She would be presenting on PUBG, the new way towards global connectivity. Arifa.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I have traveled a long distance to just present here and show the sociological perspective of gaming culture and the idea that sociology is also involved in the gaming arena of today's generation and today's life. The points that I have taken up is the idea that PUBG, if everyone is aware about that game, is a massively multiple online gaming. It is part of the MMO, that is many players are playing together to formulate a community or a society, a community in itself. And the game structure is based on the idea that you have to fight your way towards the end, and you have to be victorious. Now, the gaming strategies were similar to many other games like Clash of Clans and Mafia Wars, etc. But the idea behind it is basically to show your power over the other players and show your integrity and show your intensity of putting forward your idea that you are a stronger player in the whole community that you have built for yourself in PUBG and BGMI. But the point that I am here to make is not about the whole idea what this game is about. It is about the socializing factor, which is one of the primary you can associate socialization with PUBG, since there is a way towards socialization over there. You can interact with the players, you can interact with people from all over the globe, and there are players who you haven't even seen, but you are playing with them, and therefore you have a place, you have a lobby where you can interact with those players, not just about the game, about everything, about the idea that what was your life like, anything. It can be personal, it can be professional, it can be based on the game itself. So the idea that socialization is happening in this front is what my paper is about. So the first thing that is associated with this gaming platform is the idea of anonymity. Firstly, there is a lot of let's say a lot of you don't know the person whom you are talking to you personally, but you know them based on the gaming strategies, based on the affiliations that you have created based on the PUBG and BGMI, which is BGMI is a version of PUBG which was created for India, and PUBG was actually a China-based game, as I think most of you are aware about. So in India, the reference point of my research, which was a primary research, and I did a kind of a survey, and through snowball sampling method. So the idea of the research was to elaborate or intensify the structure of communication, and the structure of cultural building, and the structure of behavioral allocations associated with PUBG and BGMI, of course. But since BGMI is the newer version of PUBG which is being played here, but the idea and the strategies of both the games are very similar and very on the same line, and the fact that the interactions are based on the front of the lobby. So I'll be using simultaneously both the names, since what is important, one that how this arena of interaction is creating a community in itself. It is creating people who know that they might not have similar background socially, but they have a similar ideology and identity of a gaming of a player, and that player is very much interested in the gaming strategies, the idea that what is going on inside the mind of the other players, and what is how they will be pursuing the game, since it is based on winning and losing, and even financial aspects are associated with this game as well. I'm not going to go into that, since the idea of my paper was based on why these people interact, how they have interacted, what is the connotation associated with online games, and what is the idea that offline personal relationships are different from online relationship built on these platforms. Now the theory that I have taken was based on Mead and based on Goffman, which are sociologists, if you are aware about. So the identity creation of gaming platform is similar to that of personal relationships rather than that of social media, since the idea was that in social media you can have a more poised and more you can don a personality which is not that of your own, but in gaming culture or the gaming society, it is not that easy to don a personality, since the players are live and you are playing, you are having a live conversation and you are interacting with them on the platform itself, and you can be rough, you can just show yourself, your real personality to them. So there was a similarity between personal relationship and gaming culture relationship, since the time and space boundaries were less, and you can just be yourself when interacting with the fellow gamers and fellow players of your gaming strategies. Now the gaming culture might be different in India in terms of any other place for that matter, since in India the ideologies and the structure of society and the environment that one lives in influences differently, like for say any other place, like I had put in Germany, since I did read something about how their players interacted and how language plays an important role in these interactions, since in India it is predominantly the native language or the native any other language for that matter, not just English, any other native language. So the idea that the construction of the community based on PUBG and based on these interaction is very similar to that of any other social construction of any other community. Since the idea is that you have to form a relationship based on the identity factors that are similar with each other, not just based on the gaming strategies. Now, if you are into the game, you are interacting with these people, and you know that they have this ideology, they have this arena, they have this personal life, they have their private professional life, and all of them are interacting with each other on every front. Since it is a very they see PUBG and they see BGMI as a distraction from the real life. But even when they are seeing this as a distraction from the real life, from the monotony of the life, they are also interacting about this monotony when they are interacting on this front. Since this is the only platform they are establishing their relationship after having a day-to-day activity of a monotonous idea of what they are doing. And what is important is, firstly, it is important that a culture is formed. A culture is formed on the basis of the game that one plays, and the community is building based on the game that one is playing. The community is based on the idea that when you are interacting with that person, maybe he or she is from different ethnicity, different regions, different even countries, but the idea that they are interacting on this platform and they have something in commonality, that is their gaming strategy, they also feel that they can associate with these people on the basis of any other frontiers, keeping aside their barriers of social barriers, which is in what something similar to the idea that interactions are based on any personal interaction from face-to-face interaction. It is very similar to that. Now, the behavioral aspect of gaming culture is that the reciprocity of what the other person is asking is very quick, and you have to have a quick answer to whatever the person is asking, since there is no foundation of time and foundation of strategies and foundation of you don't have to picturize yourself in a personality which you are not. Since the literature also suggests that individuals have shown their actual personalities on these online platforms rather than on any other offline front, since they believe they feel that they can be themselves when they are on these online platforms or these gaming places where they can interact. So the idea that identity is also building, which is not similar to that of your offline personality, is also one of the factors which comes to my reading and my the idea that whatever this is, the culture is based on. Then I'll just come to the survey that I did and the strategies that were the idea that came out of these finding and analysis is that first thing, I have already mentioned that how the gaming strategies of PUBG and BGMI are similar, and how these players many have just played PUBG and many have just played BGMI because of different reasons altogether. But the idea that teammate culture, the idea that community is building is one of the core factors which all the respondents realize that they do form a team, they do form a society. So I am elaborating it to be a society, but they said that there is a platform where you can make a community in itself, community of the people playing together, be it from different regions, be it from different countries, be it from different ethnicities. Although the harassment of the factor that people were harassed was also a part of the research, but I did not dwell on that since the idea was to incorporate the social aspect and the socialization aspect of it. But further research can be done on the same, that how these games are furthering the judgment and furthering the the stereotypes people have about any particular person or any other particular community. That is a different research altogether. One thing that is important is the comparison between the relationship people have online and the relationship people have offline. Now, they do believe that they form a relationship on these platforms, but they also feel that the relationships that they have in personal arena, in day-to-day activity, in when you are seeing the person, when you are talking to them face to face, is very different, and you will always appreciate those interactions more than these online fronts. Although the idea that trust is built on these interaction and these relationship. Okay, I'll just complete it. So sorry everybody, and so the I'll just conclude. So the idea that one follows is that individual offline interactions are pretty much more important than these online interactions. But having said that, these community, these people also have a trust towards the game, towards the player they are playing with, and often they have said that even if we haven't met them on offline front, we would like to meet them someday or the others, so that we can interact more thoroughly with them. So the factor that human connection and the nearness of human touch is important when we are socializing at the end of the day. To summarize, you cannot say that offline platforms can eradicate the online. Online platform can eradicate the offline relationship that you have with people around you. One of the factor which was apparent in my study was how relationships are also built on these platforms based on the cultural aspect of it, and people have taken up steps which were not predominantly social and predominantly acceptable in society. Many cases were in the media recently where people have flown from a different country illegally and to be with the partner they have just met on PUBG. Now, what were the interaction based on the data that I have collected? They believe that they had relationships based on interactions with the counterparts, but the relationship were not that important or not that concrete as in the relationship formed on or the alliances formed outside of these gaming arenas. But the whole factor is that that alliances were formed during the play of this game. To conclude, I would like to say I'll just say that there is an individuality built when you are in that gaming culture. There is a personality based on these gaming cultures, but since these gaming cultures and these personalities are not paramount to the idea that or the personality that you are going through in your day-to-day activities or your day-to-day life, so it is like an imaginative, what me talks about, it is an imaginative idea that you have about yourself or about your personality, that idea may or may not be true. That idea can be true because it is believed that the personality that they are showing in these fronts are also part of their actual personality, actual coming out of who they are. And to end, I would just like to say that the societal acceptance of these games where there are individuals from different generation in another way forward to understanding the growth of gaming culture in India, and from the research comes from, and from where this research comes from, every individual playing PUBG or BGMI belong to many different social backgrounds, ranging from economically weak and economically stable alike. And even the gender perspective is very part of the whole societal arena, as in the gaming society was predominantly male centric, but since the PUBG and BGMI, the research showed that there are many women also participating in these gaming arena and excelling in these fronts. So the idea that gender plays an important role elaborating these societal boundaries and extending these relationships is also part of the gaming society, which can be further researched and further established. Thank you.
Thanks, Afrin. Arifa. Now we would like to have Anis Vasudevan. He is with Center for Culture, Media and Governance, �ＪAMIعah Millia Islamia. Yeah, Anis, he would talk on video games, the academy and the culture war.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Anish Vasudevan and I'm from �ＪAMIعah Millia Islamia. So, my topic is video games, the academy and the culture war. I'll be talking about this in terms of an incident which brought all of these things together. And from then on, things started to ripple through the gaming culture, which sort of left a long shadow on it. So first I'll start with what gaming culture is. Sorry. It's not working. Oh, sorry. Okay. Gaming culture would be considered as an amalgam of the culture of the internet, which is board and forum culture, and what is termed as geek or nerd culture. So nerd culture would be something which has a broad range of interests: comic books, video games, anime, and other such stuff. And this culture is the successor of what Hearst calls the arcade culture of the 80s and the 90s. As to what arcade culture is, arcade culture is something which we had in India, which is that people used to go to their local arcade parlors, and it became like children mostly used to go to video game parlors, and they formed a social hub there. And this space was accessible to people from all religions, financial statuses, and social backgrounds. So you got to meet a lot of people who you could not normally interact with. And this also meant that the normal ways of stratification and the normal signifiers of status did not actually function the same way there. So they had to create new forms of sort of a hierarchy of sorts. And this was what was the skill, was the thing that was chosen for the creation or as the basis of this hierarchy. So since there were people from many different backgrounds, what brought them together was, as many my earlier speakers have said, the love for gaming. So the culture was one which prioritized skill, hard work and talent. And the quote which I have said is, it did not matter what you drove to the arcade, but if you sucked at Asteroids is a game, you just sucked. It did not matter how rich you were, how poor you were, but it's a skill that matters. So this was as close to a meritocracy that could be possible, because everybody played the same equipment. They had the same equipment. They were playing the same game. So the skill is what shone through. So the arcades soon declined, and there were many reasons for it. The first reason is that there was a sort of moral panic which set in, which was fueled by the media, because many people were who were normally not interacting, which supposed to interact with each other, were interacting. And okay, so there was this idea of people were getting influenced and bad influences. Game arcades are being blamed for children taking up smoking and other such bad habits. Second factor would be that home consoles were becoming cheaper, so you don't have to go to the arcade, you can play it at home. The third would be the entry of the smartphones, and that is obvious to us all now, right now. And the last would be, and this teamed up with the smartphone, that broadband internet became very cheap. So online, playing together online became much more easier. And that is what facilitated, as we have already seen, the popularity of games such as PUBG and Fortnite. So social gaming shifted from a physical space to a virtual space. And in the virtual space, it sort of amalgamated itself with the already existing internet culture, and it sort of formed the gaming culture that we have today. So now, okay, so gaming culture has always been fringe. It has never been part of the mainstream because, again, it was part of geek culture. Geek culture was, again, a fringe culture. It has not enjoyed mainstream appeal because of the various reasons I mentioned before, that it required a love for anime, science fiction, fantasy literature, and all of these things. These were not considered very cool. But the rise of the IT sector in our daily lives, the IT, computing itself, changed a lot of that. So with the influence that IT was having in our daily lives and the prominence of people who are good at it, like say like Elon Musk and Steve Jobs, etc., are celebrities right now. So the amount of influence that this computing industry was having became much more, and their interests, their hobbies became also much prominent. So this can be seen, like you can see how the MCU literally dominated cinema for quite a large span of time. So being a geek finally became cool. So, okay. I skipped a bit too far. Okay. The mainstreaming of geek culture, as in the bringing of not non-geeks into geeks, the geek sphere. And this would be a very, it's a controversial topic. We'll discuss that a bit later, or if I get time at all. But this created a sort of culture shock. Geek culture is typically more cruder. It is much more edgy as in it is there to shock, and it has a very high aversion to political correctness. So this was unpalatable to the people who are now entering the geek sphere, and the industry, gaming industry in general, in order to sort of make it more more easily accessible to people from outside this sphere, started changing the content to suit, or making games much more, accessible to suit these newcomers. And the gamers sort of felt like they were being marginalized. Their culture, according to them, they felt that it was being gentrified. So it is at this background that this confluence of different factors came into play, that the idea of the academy, gaming culture, and the culture war came and had a collision at something which is known as Gamergate. And the cultural friction that was brought in by the interaction of these two, the mainstream culture and the gaming culture, was a backdrop of this particular thing. It is a very complex incident to explain, so I won't even try right now. I simply don't have time. I'll just paint in broad strokes. So there are three ways of looking at this particular incident. For some, it's a harassment campaign, which has its roots in misogyny and racism. To others, it was a movement to fight against what they perceive to be the corruption in media and the game industry in general. So the first is the anti-Gamergate position, and this one is the pro-Gamergate position. And the third, which is basically encompasses all parties, is the position that this is part of the culture war. The cultures are being changed, and they're being changed in specific ways. And this position encompasses all parties and third parties also, those who are not even interested in gaming. and the presence of this third party has mostly gone undocumented. So the inciting incident behind Gamergate was the publication of a blog called the Zoe post by a software developer called 𝘂𝘂𝑗𝑒𝑚. I don't know how his name is pronounced, so sorry if I'm butchering it. And this was basically, you could say it was a proto-Me Too sort of a post. He was saying that he was being abused by his partner, and there was some manipulation, and he was facing emotional abuse. The blog implied that his partner, who was Zoe Quinn, was a game developer, and she was a pretty big deal in the indie circuit. That the partner cheated on him and was having an affair with other people, and some of these people were journalists who were writing for major news publications involved in games. So when this got out, people spun it into a story of how sexual favors were being traded for good or positive views on the game itself. And this sort of led into the idea that the journalistic class and the game industry itself was too close to each other, and there was no separation in them. So this sort of led to two things happening. First is that people started commenting that there is an incestuous relationship between game developers and journalists, and the conflict of interest is not being talked about. And the second is that Zoe Quinn began to receive harassing messages and death threats on social media. So this was one thing which led to this thing coming out. And the second factor was there was this pop culture critic called Anita Sarkeesian, and she released her video series called Tropes versus Women in Video Games. And this again received a lot of backlash because some people say that this series was posing uncomfortable questions to gamers, but others saying that she was misrepresenting gamers in order to make this sort of series sensational. So that what the actual thing is, I leave to you, but this is what caused these things. So as a reaction to both these incidents, the now infamous Gamers and Are Dead series of articles was published between 28th and 29th of August 2014. So this is the Gamers Are Dead. That's a small screenshot of all the articles that were published. There were 11 articles, 12 in total. 11 were published within a one-day time span, within multiple international publications and multiple authors. And this all, the Gamergate, the proponents of Gamergate said there was some sort of coordination between it, because to have so many publications talk about the same thing in a very short time span would not be quite possible. This series of articles, according to the gamers, was the inciting incident, and what exactly is the inciting incident is debatable, which led to the sort of backlash and the movement which followed. So, and these articles spoke disparagingly about gamers and gaming culture. So, like, I've got a few quotes here. Leigh Alexander says that gaming culture is not even a culture, it's just making memes on the internet and getting mad. Or game culture is a petri dish of people who know little about how human social interaction works. So she characterizes gamers as, you can see it there. And Dan Golding says, when video games changed, the gamer identity did not stretch, it broke. So the idea that instead of saying a small portion of gamers are acting badly, it sort of became painted large onto the entire population. So it was not that these few people were doing something, it was the gamers were doing this, and the culture itself was facilitating what they were doing. So Luke Plunkett tried to clarify, he's a Kotaku journalist, said that they are not talking about everyone who plays games, or they're just talking about the certain people as a shorthand about some reactionary holdouts. So if you are not that kind of person, that's cool. But the problem with that line of thinking is that first of all, it's creating a stereotype of a gamer, what a gamer is. Then it is demonizing it. And it's saying, and if somebody says, oh, why are you talking about gamers like that? So, okay, we are not talking about you. If you don't do these things, you are cool. But those other people who identify as you are the bad people. So then it is basically demonizing an entire group of people with no fault of their own. So this sort of claims of collusion also became it got proved because there was a private Google group called the Game Journals Pro, and their internal communications got leaked, which showed that, and this was very high profile people in the gaming industry, and that there was an attempt to spin the incident away from the incestuous relationship within journalism to the idea of misogyny and racism and all of those things, so that they could take the heat away from themselves. So that there was a concerted attempt to do that, and the gamers were not being like conspiracist in their saying that this sort of thing was taking place. So this is exactly where the academy comes into play. So the Gamergate and the academy collided with especially one organization, which is the Digital Games Research Association, also known as DIGRA. And one of the more vocal proponents of this sort of collusion was Carl Benjamin, who is better known on YouTube as Sargon of Akkad. So there were two common reasons why this suspicion was raised, and one is Dan Golding's Gamers Are Dead article, which was part of the series, quoted studies from DIGRA affiliated scholars. And the second is that Silver String Media, which is connected to both to Sarkeesian and Quinn, was connected to DIGRA in a very, they were attended conferences, there were some sort of consulting relationship between them. So because of that, and there was also the conference notes which were released, which talked about how the culture of gaming had to be changed. And this culture had to be changed in a specific way. And that sort of created much more suspicion. Another reason why academia was suspected to be providing ideological cover fire for the media was that no one seemed to be reporting about the harassment of the gamers. Everybody was presenting that the journalists were being harassed, but when the harassment of the gamers were there, nobody seemed to care about it. So all the articles, all the scholarly articles, I'm not talking about news articles, scholarly articles seem to mention the harassment committed by gamergaters, but nobody seemed to mention anything that was perpetrated on them. So rape threats, racist abuse, and all of this was done on both sides of the argument. I'm not denying that gamers were doing it also. But if only one side is presented and the other side being able to go scot-free, then that is a problem. So one person who was very famous in this incident that she got death threats was Brianna Wu. And the screenshot you see is Brianna Wu herself sending a harassing threat to herself. But she forgot to actually log into the alternate account. She used her own account to do it. And the comment below reads, running out of ammo or something, Brianna. So, and these things are not reported. So another thing about how, okay, I'll skip this. I don't think I have time for this. So let's look at what game studies literature actually is saying about gaming culture and gamers. That first, it is being depicted as white cisgendered male heterosexual individuals. Then those are the readings I'm talking about. They talk about it multiple times, and it is systematically they have been depicted as such. It has also been described as toxic geek masculinity. So it has been ascribed a gender, and it has been ascribed an ethos. And all studies, all surveys which show have shown that gamers are overwhelmingly liberal. So the thing is that these articles and texts are what form the basis of the narratives of the Gamers Are Dead articles. The stereotypes that are we presenting in our academic work becomes reified by cross citations, and then the news starts reporting on it, and then it says that, oh, this reputable news source reported on it, so it must be true. So this is creating, now the idea of the gamer becomes a demonized one. Nobody wants to identify as a gamer. And I think Adrian Shaw also said that gamer is an identity which many people are reluctant to identify with. So even if not directly, academia is culpable in creating a situation which led to the manifestation of something like Gamergate. So this again gives rise to a much bigger problem that we are facing in academia, that the lay person does not know how to deal with academia. They don't know how to interact with it, how to interface with it, how to look at it, how to criticize it. Thank you. Okay. So academia has become so specialized and so full of jargon that a non-academic has no way of interacting with it in any meaningful way. Peer review process has nobody outside academia has any idea how that works. And the lay person can only look at an academic's word with the idea of authority without being able to actually understand or critique what that person is saying. Another thing is that there is ample studies which say that the gamer is no longer the white cis male stereotype that it has been shown as, but this change is not seen in literature. The gaming culture has always been depicted as such. So, and how 2020 she brought this issue up, and she is also a member of DIGRA, and she brought this up. But the needle has not, the questioning the stereotype, the needle has not moved in any significant way. But not only has it not moved in any significant way, it has escalated. Now the gamer has become the alt-right. So instead of introspecting and looking at our own prejudices as an academic endeavor, the basic assumptions that we are talking about, there has been a consolidation of these stereotypes, and these stereotypes have mutated and now turned into the alt-right. Trump is now somehow associated with gamers. I don't know why. So if you think that this is all just talks which deal with Western culture, I'm sorry to say it's coming to Indian shores. This is the introductory note for a conference that's going to be held on the 9th. It says the Gamergate is a hate group and it's full of white male right-wing gamers. So if we have to look at our assumptions, we need to look at it very quickly, because India is a very big gaming market and audience. And if we want gaming to prosper in India, we need to make corrective measures as quickly as possible. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Anis. Now we have Dr. Sabah Khatun. She is Assistant Professor in the Department of Education and Training, Maulana Azad National Urdu University. Her paper is on shady aspects of video gaming culture, a critical review.
Hello everyone. This is Sabah Khatun, Assistant Professor from the Department of Education and Training, MANUU. And I thank organizers for giving us a platform to share our experiences and ideas here. And as you can see, my topic is quite shady aspects of video gaming culture. So basically my paper is all about a meta-analysis of different research papers, scientific papers, talks about both sides, that is positive sides as well as negative sides of video game. So as all of us know that today the lives of children, especially the youngsters, are deeply shaped by technology and digital media. The omnipresence of mobile phones, tablets, laptops, and console games, etc., purposes and some entertainment purposes has become nearly unavoidable. Within this digital landscape, video games have emerged as a significant and rapidly expanding element, gaining immense popularity, relevance, and complexity in recent years. So in this paper, actually, I have taken chunks of all those research findings, and I would like to present it here. So when we see the positive side of this video game or gaming culture, many studies show that games that involve multiple players encourage children to work cooperatively to achieve their goals. And some online games are even played internationally, and this can introduce the child to players of different nationalities and cultures. This fosters friendship among different peoples. And video games increase your child's self-confidence and self-esteem as he masters games. Another study from 2022 by Georgia University researchers that combined brain imaging with the decision-making task also suggests that regular video game players made faster and more accurate decisions than those who rarely play. Games, other studies show that games can also be used to teach problem-solving skills, critical thinking, and collaboration, with a better understanding of teamwork achieved by students in comparison to those who did not play the games, one of the studies says. Studies show that games integrate personalized learning experience into the curriculum, and with the use of adaptive learning technology, games can adjust to the individual needs and abilities of the learners. Online games introduce a child to computer technology and online world. One should recognize that we are now living in a high-tech, sophisticated world. Online games make your child adapt to these technologies and make them more comfortable. When we talk about the video game addiction, in June 2018, the World Health Organization officially declared gaming addiction as a mental health disorder. Findings from study conducted by the National Institute of Media and the family in Minneapolis indicate that video games can be addictive for children, leading to increased level of depression and anxiety. Additionally, addicted children may develop social phobias and their academic performances is likely to be declined. Neuroimaging research suggests that prolonged engagement with specific video games can result in a brain changes in children. And it is also associated with addictive behaviors. And MRI scans further demonstrated that addictive video games can impact children's brain in a manner similar to the effects of drugs and alcohol. If we talk about the negative impacts of video games, the negative impacts of video games are often attributed to its violent content. Scientific studies suggest that children who play more violent video games are prone to having elevated aggressive thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, coupled with reduced tendencies to pro-social helping. Individuals who frequently witness simulated violence, such as in video games, may help a desensitization to it. And this desensitization can make them more prone to engaging in violent action themselves and less likely to display empathetic behavior, says one of the research scholars. One of the studies suggested or concluded that adolescents who play more than 1 hour of console or internet video games may have more intense symptoms of ADHD or inattention than those who do not. This negative effect may lead to problems in school. Another study from Journal of Attention Disorders show that playing video games may increase the risk of developing ADHD symptoms in early adolescence. Some of the studies say that video gaming may also have bad effects on some children's health, including eye strain, headaches, and video-induced seizures. It is also found to cause obesity in teens. Sitting in front of the screen for hours and prevents the player from getting some exercises. Some gamers are found to be consume more food while playing video games. Excessive gaming may also cause postural, muscular, and skeletal disorders, and overly repeated use of muscles and tendons cause pain and inflammation, which may progress in numbness, weakness, and permanent injury to sometimes permanent injury to the muscles. And many studies also said that while engaging in online activities, children may encounter inappropriate language and behavior from others, exposing them to potential online risks. Sexual predators and malicious individuals often disguise themselves as children and in multiplayer video games and chat apps, making it crucial to monitor and protect your child's online activities. And children who dedicate excessive time to playing video games might display impulsive behavior and encounter attention-related issues. as indicated by recent study released in the Journal of Psychology and Popular Media Culture. In this research, attention problems were characterized as challenges in initiating and maintaining behavior to achieve specific goals. Okay, sorry. So I think हम में से सभी ने ये गेम देखी है या खेली भी है. I think Among Us. So this is one of the online video game. Among Us played online multiplayer in which players take either role as a crewmate or as an imposter. So ये गेम देखने के बच्चों के recently मैंने देखा मेरे 2020 में जो है बच्चे बहुत ज़्यादा addicted हो गए थे इस गेम के. तो I was like just look into it what it is all about. Then I have also played with them. So मैंने देखा कि कई सारे इसमें जो है shady aspects छुपे हुए थे इस गेम में. So like आप में से अगर कई सारे लोगों ने देखा तो some screenshots are given here. जहाँ पर जो imposter होता है उसका बस मकसद यही है कि he has to eliminate all the crewmates and just kill the crewmates and eliminate. So this is a matter of concern actually when our young children are playing such types of games showing such kind of violence. It is something which is more concerning. So these are some of the remarks of the gamers actually who are playing these games. So one of the gamers say that okay, you will lose all your friends playing this game. Learning how to become a compelling liar is necessary to winning this imposter as an imposter. So this game is teaching treachery, lying to the partners, and sometimes it means showing a side of yourself and that others haven't seen before. And one of the gamers says, Among Us can definitely provide you with pleasant evening of manipulation and treachery with friends. It has ingredients that will appeal to greatest number with an already popular concept. And the other says, Among Us put the crew of astronauts against an imposter who looks the same as other players, but it is on a task to sabotage and murder everyone. Gameplay works perfectly and can easily break a few friendships. So one of the gamers says, a fun game, but it's terrible and toxic community. So ये जो है और भी बहुत सारे ऐसे और इसके अलावा यहाँ पर चैट बॉक्स है, फ्री चैट बॉक्स जो गेमर्स यहाँ पर यूज़ करते हैं. So children are exposed to obnoxious behavior, sometimes abusive language they are exposed to. So this is a matter of concern. We have to address this. And to conclude, undoubtedly, gamified learning and gamified assessment have emerged as a pivotal contributor to the education landscape. Moreover, research studies have demonstrated that video games foster the development of creativity, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills in children. However, it is imperative to acknowledge, and address certain inherent aspects of video gaming culture. Children engaged in online video games increasingly exposed to elements such as violence, the use of abusive language, cheating, treachery, falsehood, and bullying. This prompts a critical inquiry whether the exploration of these benefits is truly justifiable when weighed potential compromises to our ethical and social values. So this is the question I put before you. Okay, does the exploration of these games justify the potential compromises to our ethical and social values? So this is the question I just display before you. Thank you.
Sahu. Exactly 10 minutes. Just present to connect.
I have prepared for 10 minutes only. Yeah. Please. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, this is my topic, why I'm alloys subverting the self to understand the time and temporality in Horizon's world. I have chosen this topic because it's a way to understand symbolic interactionism that
when we see video games, it comes from our personal belief and identity construction. Next. So before I go into my topic, these are the lines which was used as a provocative advertisement by Electronic Arts in 1983 that asked everyone this question: what if game can build us an emotion, gives us the emotion? At that moment, it was a question of absurdity, but now, after 30 years, is the reality we see within the virtual world of new media. So before I go, before these two books actually provided me the base foundations to understand what is exactly happening. Jean Baudrillard's Simulacra and Simulation gives us that the simulation world is, we are creating it. And through understanding media, the simulated world we are creating is the extension of our imagination. Next. These are the video games. So over these video games, I want to talk about the game mechanics, which is based on fight and weapon skills that can be seen in other games. But the most important factor over here is the flow of emotions that we see within the protagonistic character. So after going to this, I have divided into 3 different parts. Why Aloy? Why to understand her emotions? Because it semblances with our life through emotion, through the perspective of emotion and time, collective consciousness, and love and home. Next. So emotion, empathy, and time. When we talk about emotion, we can see a varied spectrum of emotion, that is agony, denial, perceptive thoughts, ingenuity, and how it grows with time flows to understand further while playing the series. Please, next. Oh yeah, this is, click it out. I want to present a video to understand how things are happening over there. Audio नहीं है. Please pass it.
It's not about the distant hopes of creating new content.
He's been connected to the audiences, how they play the game. So next. And this one also. No, the next previous. Click it. Here she explains the idea of home. What is home? What is home? Home is not a place, but home is a place where one should be with, one should want to be lived with, one should want be loved. So following this, I want to ask this question: can a computer make you cry? So this question has a varied spectrum of thought because I have used symbolic interactionism. So the very base of this question is very subjective. For me, it may create the emotional aspect, but for any others, it may not be. Thank you.
Chaudhary.
नहीं. Yes, PDF is ready. Oh, PPT is ready. Respected teachers, sir, ma'am, my colleagues, very good afternoon to all of you. My topic is a bit different and different from the gaming fever, which we all witnessed right now. But yes, it is related to the theme, that is digital governance. Can I put this? Yeah. This I want. Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah. Okay. So, as we all know, that today is the age of information, communication, and technology. And we are witnessing significant impact of ICT on both the culture and structure of our society. PPT? No, I have shared. Yeah. Huh, yes. The same one. Yes. Yes. I'm continuing, huh? Yeah, because it is also. Okay, from where? This side. Okay. So, yes. Okay. Yes, so digital governance is broadly defined as the advanced use of ICT as enabling strategies for the improving organizational performance. Customer-centric and mission-driven governments use the power of internet to more closely link citizens with public service providers. Citizens are using technology to hold governments accountable, and governments in turn are using technology to be more transparent, accountable, and inclusive. Being related to digitalization and e-governance, CSCs, Common Service Centers, is also one of the important projects under Digital India program. These centers have been set up with the objective of providing facilities for delivering e-services by the government to the areas where the availability of internet and computers is minimal. Common Service Center? Yes. It is the initiative of Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology for delivering services which are mainly digital in nature to the rural folks of India. It is mainly to promote entrepreneurship in rural areas in order to improve their livelihood. And this is the 9 pillars of Digital India, and on which CSCs we can say are majorly get inspiration from the pillar number 4, that is e-governance, reforming government through technology. This is the structure. First is VLE. It is the on the village level, and then SCAs, who is having the responsibility of monitoring VLEs, and then on the topmost level, it is SDA, State Designated Authority. Government of India has also appointed National Level Service Agency along with Department of Information Technology to support SDA as well as SCA to enable CSC business in the various states. Now, coming to the objectives, in this paper, I would like to see the impact of CSCs on rural citizens, both in terms of their success and shortcomings, to analyze their role as change agents. Present study is based on secondary sources. Now, coming directly to the result and discussions. Majorly, it is the quality of information, quality of institution and system, trust, user satisfaction, and net benefit on the account of both beneficiaries of services and service providers, on whose basis the service quality of CSCs are assessed. Regarding achievements, first is reduced cost and time of availability of delivery of services to citizens. We all have witnessed this. And Utthaman, in his study, has also pointed out that e-governance is a new way of life where ITC has reduced the cost and time of availability and delivery of services to the citizens. Second, it has limited the scope of corruption by introducing transparency and accountability through the digitalization of G2C, government to citizen, and business. Second is B2C services, because it has reduced the number of intermediaries in between. Then next, it has increased access to public services. There is a study by 𝘕𝘳𝑘𝘢𝑚𝑎𝑟 Sharma in which he observes that common service centers are e-government initiatives that aim to increase and assess the public services and promote easy and direct interaction with the government. Next, it has increased access to information in the ambit of people. There is a study which has discussed market creation and poverty elevation through common service centers in rural India. In this, they says that information plays a vital role for poverty elevation and well-being of the rural population. And this information provides an opportunity to work and to get better access to the programs, different programs which government is initiating. Next is affordable services and availability of the services at the doorstep. Then greater citizen participation. According to the Government of India report on CSCs, across 19 states, 1 citizen out of 10 has been served. And the most preferred services includes issuance of certificates like record of rights, birth certificate, character certificate, and death certificate, etc. Now coming to the limitations. First is low awareness of e-government services. Akshaya centers, these are actually the name of CSCs in Kerala. The assessment of Akshaya CSCs from customers' perspective reveals that customers have little awareness regarding the concept of e-governance, procedures, and service charges of Akshaya CSCs. Then in Uttar Pradesh, the biggest challenge was lack of awareness regarding information technology in general and CSCs in particular. Next is low digital literacy. Obviously, literacy is already a challenge to us, to our country, but again, now the digital literacy is gaining the prime importance, and still we are lacking in that. Then longer travel time and higher transaction costs. Then it is the vendor related issues. There is a very interesting study which is in the part of Zoom, private entity Zoom. It has implemented around 12,000 CSCs in 8 states. The states of Odisha, Chhattisgarh and Assam were the most difficult states that presented greatest challenges during implementation. Naxalite and extremist activity, drug deterrence and inaccessible panchayats were the major obstacles there. Then low ownership of ICT equipments and low penetration of internet. Many times it has seen that BSNL is the sole service provider in the areas, and that too are lacking the providing the good infrastructure or good connectivity in most of the areas. Many times VLEs are not able to perform because of the lack of connectivity. Then infrastructure constraints such as power failure or poor power supply. Rajni Das conducted a case study in Jharkhand, Uttar Pradesh and Meghalaya to understand the ground level issues and challenges. In Meghalaya, he found that lack of connectivity and power supply were seen as the major bottlenecks in the sustainability of CSCs. Then, inadequate training at the part of SCAs. Like they have allotted, but the adequate training and grievance redressal mechanism is lacking. Then, lack of effective monitoring system. Yes, in this part also government is lacking. Misawa centers, which are acting as common service centers in the state of Andhra Pradesh. Here, the issues that has been revealed in the study includes power failure, lack of awareness, monitoring of the project, and error in data entry. Then lack of proper G2C services or inadequate content services. Like in my pilot study, 2 or 3 CSCs in the Kamrup district of Assam, I surveyed, and there I spent around 2.5 hours, and at that time, 3 customers were sitting around 1.5 hours just to wait that when the server is get connected. So most of the time, the problem of down server is the major issue in these areas. Then hardware insufficiency and lack of timely maintenance, lack of coordination, broadband policy collapse, failure of private players to bring B2C services because they are not the gloomy target areas. Then marginalized groups such as persons with disabilities, scheduled castes and women's are less involved in the functioning of CSCs. And here, the focus of the government, or we can say the major aim of the government, because through VLEs, government wants to promote the entrepreneurship. Here, that is lacking. They are getting behind. Then weak financial sustainability and lack of revenue support from government. During the time of COVID, many CSCs, because of the financial unsustainability, they got closed. And then again, there is no support from the government to get it reopened or get it run in a sustainable way. Then yes, lack of willingness among bureaucrats, because this is basically breaking their hegemony. So that is why they are not very much inclined to the services offered through CSCs. And then burden of high investment. And then coming to policy implications, the e-readiness of India is still low. The cultural norms and patterns of individual behavior still affects the way in which technology is used by citizens. Therefore, in order to match the digital divide in the country, there is a need to develop a conceptual framework which can be further validated in the real life situation for the effective implementation of e-governance in India. So a hybrid approach needs to be adopted, which will encompass a centralized approach for document management, knowledge management, file management, grievance management, etc., and distributed approach for the local affairs. capacity building for VLEs, greater citizen participation, timely maintenance of infrastructure, and support of local body are the contextual factors which can make the CSCs sustainable. Now coming to the conclusion. Okay. E-governance is an attempt to bring smart governance. Smart means simple, moral, accountable, responsive, and transparent, with the use of ICT in a very effective and efficient way. So no doubt CSCs has significantly contributed in making the governance achievable and approachable to people. They are acting as change agents also. But such constraints like slow connectivity, and which we have already discussed, are basically creating the barriers. So the challenges of e-governance are not only technological challenges, but also we can classify them as citizens' challenges, economic challenges, implementation challenges, and administrative challenges. And yes, it should also be taken into account. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aanchal. Now I request Professor Afroz Alam to come over the dais. We may have a few questions, but then chair will open up it.
Now, we have now presentations. We have heard one side of the story. We are sitting in a laboratory where the exchange of ideas taking place. We now and should now raise questions, if at all it is not coming between you and the food, which is almost ready. So now the house is open for few questions. Even if the answers are needed, we can take and appreciate questions. All right. So now the house is open. I think food is more important. All right. Maybe can I make one small on the road? Yeah, please do.
On digital governance of Aanchal. Actually, one of the objectives of digital governance is elimination of brokers. That is perfectly all right. But what is interesting is that one of the studies by my student for a PDF, we have a new category which I call it digital broker. We know that India is a country, like these CSCs are primarily for rural areas. And in rural areas, not everyone is digitally, knowledgeable person or how to make use of. So in the study, which is, a new concept which is evolving is digital broker. Let us define digital broker as someone who is competent to handle those digital resources for availing services provided by these CSCs as such. So this is another category. While it is true that CSC is pushing those brokers, towards domination, but simultaneously a new category is also evolving. That is what a researcher and the new generation researchers may like to, look upon it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I had few questions, but definitely I'll not raise it. As an organizing secretary, I should not do any mistake of delaying food. So I kindly request the chair of the session, Professor Afroz Alam, to give his presidential remarks or his remarks.
A very good afternoon.
and I will not take more than 10 minutes. But before starting, I'll be thanking my organizers for the courtesy call inviting me to chair this session. Though I was not competent enough to evaluate the presenters, they were far bigger, potent enough in presenting their ideas with coherency, backed with deep research and analytical tools, and some case studies. I was experiencing virtual sociology here. I have seen that the human development, if you'll take into account the 4 billion years, and most particularly the last 70,000 years, have not witnessed that kind of change that we are witnessing in the last 20 years. You know that from stone ages to bronze, million of years have taken. But from STEAM development to digital revolutions, not more than 40 years. So the time gap has been reduced. It was a pleasure listening Nikita, where she was trying to identify that how video games approaches history. And she has presented a very different account, which was quite interesting, while highlighting that the video games can be used as a pedagogical methods, which can be accurate if the gamers take it more seriously to impart learning through it. Similarly, I was very happy to see that Arifa Samreen bringing the whole context of PUBG and global connectivity, where she was the one highlighting that how socialization is taking place, where we are trying to connect with each other, still remain anonymous. So the anonymity was one of the factor, but the emotions is quite percolating down across the communities and identity lines on the virtual platform. Vasudevan, interesting. And I was really happy to just find the linkages between the arcade culture to now culture and how that transition is taking place. On the one side, the meritocracy was being highlighted. On the other side, moral panic is being offered. Fair enough. The point was that when I heard the whole understanding, the gamers are dead, I was recalling the whole Nietzsche's argument, the God is dead, and I'm also not feeling well. So the Nietzsche's argument, every discipline has gone through those transitions. The history was that, if you will recall Fukuyama's book, the ideology was that, when you will recall the Daniel Bell's ideology, the theory is dead if you will look at the David Easton's understanding. So the idea is that this dead culture is across when you are trying to analyze the rot within the discipline and the popular culture. I of course agree with you that the academia needs to be more liberated to invite the non-academic force to engage with it and come out with their responses. But I take it personally when you have highlighted that the academia is full of jargons and more specialized, focusing more on the nitty-gritty of the methods than the actual concern of the discipline. So it should be more democratic space academia. Sabah Khatun, it was really, I thought, where is she? Yeah, I thought that your kids were the real reasons for writing this paper. So I can understand your kids' addictions, but certainly that person, that your kid may have got more confidence while going with the gaming culture. You cannot avoid it, but you can make it more responsible. So it is now inevitable. Make it more thing which can be enhancing your learning and not playing on the other side of what anti-game getters were trying to highlight. Fair enough. All right, I highlighted Satyabrat that connect through your presentation, and he did. So through the short video clips, he tried to generate a flow of emotions amongst us. We were truly connected with his presentations and felt and empathized the way he was trying to make it. And of course, yes, and I agree with his questions. Can computer make you cry? Yes, you did. Now the boards and computers are becoming sentient. If you will look at the Google's new researches, the Lambda and the other chatbots, now they are speaking like a human. They are trying to indulge into your subconscious. So like a human, they are more than humans now. A day will come, they will emerge as a new Leviathan and we will become their pets. So beware of that. And fitting into the entire discourse, Achal, I thought that you brought the question of accountability, transparency and accessibility, not exclusively limiting to the government side and the citizenry, but also to the entire virtual generations spending huge much of time on the virtual spaces called gamers. So these three aspects of governance should equally be applied to the gamers, that they should be more accountable, more transparent and more accessible. Otherwise, a kind of generations we are making in where every way, the way of eating, the way of living, the way of traveling, the way of gaming is changing. Now, so from manual generations to touch generation era, lot of things are happening. We must be conscious of it, else the robots will dominate us as a colleagues. So we are also at threat. Let us not lose our identity. Let the human, because throughout the revolutions happen in the world, the humans control their inventions. But in the digital world, I am very doubtful the algorithms will get their own senses and will control the humans. So beware. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. It was a learning exercise. Being as chair, I learned a lot than having anything to offer new to you. Thank you, everyone.
बेहतरीन, बहुत खूब। अफरोज़ साहब की बातों से लग रहा था कि इस फील्ड के वो बहुत मशहूर माहिरीनों में शामिल हैं और I'm sure that every time we hear him, he is new, he is different, he is very unique in terms of his remarks and presentations, and that is why we have people like Professor Afroz Alam with us. So we thank all of the paper presenters now and the chair for giving your precious time. I have two announcements. One, you all please minimize the time. We cannot run like digital tools, but we should move fast to the university guest house, finish our lunch and come back to this hall, because we had planned to restart at 2 o'clock. It's already 2. And I'm generally we should not be happy, but I'm happy that there were no more questions about the session, so that we can restart. But please rejoin us in the same hall. All the sessions throughout 2 days will be here. There is one parallel session tomorrow in the next room, but in the same building. So thank you everyone for sparing your time. Thank you Media Center for giving your valuable time. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. We will meet again after the break.